Take a load off and grab a seat. Pull up a chair, prop up your feet. That's fine by me. Fine by me. Yeah. It's podcast time.
What is up, everybody? This is Josh Harrington, and we decided at the Fine By Me podcast that we'd probably start trying to do a little bit of solo stuff. So this is kind of a solo thing I'm working on. It's going to be kind of history related. I'm really big into presidential history, so it'll be different stuff like that. And also, it might just be some rambling. Who knows? Might be some current event stuff. Things going on in the world. Been a pretty busy time we've been in here lately. Anybody know what's been going on? Been a pretty busy week. And pretty wild, the election. I didn't really know what to think going into it. I thought it would be a lot closer. But I just think people are ready for a change no matter what side you're really on. Everything's so volatile right now. I might want to get too heavy on all this, but y'all know, anybody listening knows how the world landscape is and things going on. So hopefully we can kind of lighten things up and all that good stuff. So when my cat's being a real pain in the butt right now. She's trying to bust up in the door. I'm trying to do this, and it's breaking my concentration. But hey, I'm gonna hang in there. We're gonna get through this. It's my first time doing a solo podcast. I do like to talk, so we'll see how this goes. I'm gonna try to get through a lot of it, but we'll see. Anyway, so today, what I would like to talk about, it's November, and very important thing happened in the history of the United States in late November. Not just with the Pilgrims and the Indians. I don't even know if that was even really November. I think we just kind of celebrate that day in November. I'll have to look into that. Maybe somebody can let me know. But November 22nd, 1963 was a big day and a sad day. The assassination of President John Fitzgerald Kennedy. So kind of leading up to that, I want to hit on just a few certain things. The Kennedy family's always been a pretty big... I know my generation's heard about the Kennedys, my whole life. The generation before absolutely adored John F. Kennedy, my parents' generation. And very well-liked guy. Of course, we're hearing a lot in the news now about Bobby Kennedy Jr. He tried to run for president this time as an independent, and we know that with the two-party system that it's really hard to get any kind of traction as a third-party candidate. But I think that he may have a pretty important role in the new administration coming in with newly elected President-elect Trump. And I guess we'll see. He's really trying to bust down the FDA, man. He wears me out trying to listen to that dude talk. It almost gives me a panic attack. I know he had some issues with like a vaccination or something that messed him up, that kind of messed his vocal cords up or something. I'm not real sure about that. I think that's right. But back to John F. Kennedy. We were talking, me and my daughter were talking last night about John F. Kennedy, and she said, I know John F. Kennedy. He owns NASA. I said, no, he doesn't own NASA. And she said, well, we've been to the Kennedy Space Center. And I said, it was named after him. And I said, do you know what NASA is? And she goes, yeah, it's where they send people into space and to the moon or whatever. And I said, we've never been to the moon. But that's for a whole different day. But she just rolled her eyes, And I said, you know what NASA stands for? And she goes, no, what does it stand for? And I said, the National Aeronautical and Space Administration. And she goes, where's the M? I said, the M? She goes, yeah. I said, okay, so let's break this down. I said, N is for national, A is for aeronautical. I said, are you staying with me? She goes, yeah. I said, S is for space, and A is for administration. She goes, oh, she said, I thought you said menstruation. I said, no, not National Aeronautical and Space Administration. I said, I got to do a better job of announcing my A's. "Listen, getting through this with you." I said, "Man," I thought that was funny. Kids are wild. Kids say the darndest things, as they say. But it's pretty cool that she paid attention. That she. It's just funny how kids think. She thought that since it was named after him, that he owned it or invented it or whatever. But just thought that was pretty silly. Um, a little background on the Kennedy family. Their dad, Joseph Kennedy, Joe Kennedy, he was big time on pushing them into politics. Um, Joe Kennedy was like the patriarch of the Kennedy family. He was the father of course, John F. Kennedy, Robert F. Kennedy, and Senator Ted Kennedy, which was a senator forever, for a long time. I mean, I think he may have died in office. To be honest with you, I'm not sure, but man, he was in the Senate from 1962 until 2009 when he died. So just prominent figure in Massachusetts and that whole area. That's where they're from. I think that it is wild to think that all of these prominent people come from this one family. I know a lot of times it's like a Kennedy effect or whatever, but they had a sister named Rosemary Kennedy that was she had some mental issues, problems. Nobody really knew much about it until later in life. She was hidden from most of the family. When she was 23 years old, doctors told Joseph and his wife that uh, that they could do like this new psychosurgery called lobotomy, and it would help with her occasional mood swings and outbursts. She had like, I don't know if she was maybe autistic. Nobody really knows because they kept it so hush hush, and they didn't really talk about the scope of her disability and her erratic behavior because it frustrated them, and they were. Joe Kennedy was worried that it would cause like shame on the family, and it might hurt his political ventures and the political career of the rest of his children, her brothers and sisters. So Kennedy requested that the surgeons perform the lobotomy. And if you don't know what a lobotomy is, it's a neurosurgical treatment for a psychiatric disorder, and it involves severing the connections in the brain's prefrontal cortex. The surgery causes most of the connections to and from the prefrontal cortex and the frontal lobes of the brain to be severed. Uh, in the past, the treatment was used for treating psychiatric disorders in mainstream procedures in some countries. And the procedure is very controversial, obviously, because, I mean, nobody really knew what it could do. I'm sure it helped some people in a certain sense, but, I mean, it just seems so barbaric to me just to do that to somebody. But it ended up going terrible for Rosemary, and it left her pretty much with the mindset of like a 2-year-old, like a toddler. She couldn't go to the bathroom by herself. She would go to the bathroom on herself, just crazy stuff. And so they hid her away forever, pretty much. I mean, a lot of the family didn't even know about it until Joe passed away in the 60s. And the lobotomy did not even come public knowledge until 1987. I was born in 1988, so I mean it hasn't been that long ago that they knew about it, and they didn't even know about her location until 1961, whenever Joe had a stroke, and the children were made aware of where she was. Um, just wild stuff. I mean, scandals in everyone's family, so when it's things like that, I'm glad that we have more awareness to mental illness and just things, that we kind of understand more now because of things that maybe Rosemary went through or whatever, So, and then of course RFK, Bobby Kennedy's dad, Robert Kennedy, he was killed in 1968 while he was running for president. So just a lot of tragedy. And then John F. Kennedy Jr., he died in a plane crash in the late 90s or maybe early 2000s. Just a family just full of just wild things and I guess these things happen in every family. We might just see more of it because they're in the spotlight. People are just enamored with the Kennedys. So, like I said, it's they've always been kind of a staple in American society and in like a political dynasty, if you will. So I'm going to kind of hit on that. It's probably going to be 2 or 3 episodes leading up to our actual Fine by Me episode that'll be coming out that week, hopefully, of Thanksgiving, around the same time of the assassination of JFK. I'm going to hit on some LBJ stuff, and who knows where it might go. I'm going to bounce around on presidents. I'm going to try to stay on topic for these few. They're going to be short, probably 20, 30 minutes. I'm not going to try to get into too much detail here at first. Like I said, this is my first time doing a solo podcast. It's hard to sometimes engage in conversation because I don't know. I'm not really like a lecturer or anything like that. And I'm not an expert by any means. It's just I think this is fun stuff. I enjoy this stuff. It's interesting to me, and I hope whoever's listening enjoys it. Maybe I can teach you something, and maybe you can teach me something. There'll be, hit that Patreon and get in there and, join the community. I'm going to be hitting on a book by Clint Hill, who was the Secret Service agent. He was a Secret Service agent for 5 administrations. He has a book called 5 Presidents. And he was in the Secret Service for President Dwight Eisenhower, John F. Kennedy, Lyndon B. Johnson, Richard Nixon, and Gerald Ford. So, I mean, this dude's seen all sorts of wild shit. And he was actually, if you've ever seen the Zapruder film, you know that whenever President Kennedy's shot, you see a Secret Service agent run up and jump on the back of the car and kind of cover First Lady Miss Kennedy, and that's Clint Hill. That's the guy I'm talking about, the book. And it's just wild. It's so in detail and just, of course, graphic. But I'm going to read some passages from that book next episode, and we're going to kind of dive into more of that. And hopefully you like this and you listen to the next episode and get this far. But I'm going to hit on that stuff and just also like how maybe the Secret Service has kind of evolved since then and in their measures, and maybe devolved in some ways and had to change, and maybe now it's time for some changes and stuff. We've seen that this last summer with a couple of big events that happened during this election cycle that they've had to kind of regroup and back up a little bit and punt and figure things out and change up some procedures and stuff like that. John F. Kennedy was a very interesting person within himself. He shouldn't even probably lived through childhood, to be honest with you. He had several what they would call now like autoimmune disease. He took steroids pretty much his whole life just to get through. He had to wear a back brace. Whenever he was shot that day, his back brace actually held him up. And there's some, theory about maybe he had, of course, I think that maybe the first shot would have killed him, but his back brace that he was wearing actually held him up still, even though he was dead or unconscious or whatever. So when he took that other hit, but not to get too much into that, but had several illnesses, maybe like Addison's disease. There was all sorts of wild stuff that he had going on. But lost my train of thought for a second. See, that's going to happen too, so just bear with me. This cat is scratching the hell out of my door, trying to bust up in here. Then when I open the door, she won't come in. Shit's whack. But whatever. Cats, man. Cats are wild. But back to John F. Kennedy's interesting life. During World War II, like everybody his age, they felt like it was the right to fight for the country. You're fighting evil, Nazi Germany, all that stuff. So he joined the U.S. Naval Reserve. So this was after he graduated from Harvard. Like I said, interesting guy. He went to Harvard first, graduated. It was 1940. He felt the need that he needed to join in the military, serve his country. He knew that there was some bad stuff coming. This was before Pearl Harbor, of course, but still. the general atmosphere of the world knew that Hitler was 1939 Germany, and leading up to that, they knew some big stuff was about to happen. And there was other big stuff happening already with the invasion of Poland and Great Britain and all that stuff. Bombing Great Britain. It was never invaded, but bombing Great Britain, blah, 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 blah. So he was, during World War II, he commanded a PT boat. And in the Pacific Theater, Kennedy's actually was sunk in the boat PT 109. And he had to rescue his fellow sailors, and that made him a war hero. He earned the Navy and Marine Corps Medal, but it left him with more injuries that he already had with these illnesses that he had as a child. He did spend a brief stint in, I think, journalism for a little while, and he represented the working class in the Boston district in the House of Representatives. I think late 40s, early 50s. So he did have a path to politics before president. And just, man, he won. I did my research paper on John F. Kennedy in high school, and he had a book that he wrote called Profiles of Courage. And great book, man. He was such ahead of his time, maybe, with a lot of his thinking. It was kind of progressive at the time. Nothing too crazy, but at the time it probably was seen as like some new and kind of outlandish ideas. He barely beat Richard Nixon in 1960. Richard Nixon was the incumbent vice president. And there it went from there. After elected, a bunch of wild stuff happened, like the invasion of pigs in Cuba, the fear of the Cuban Missile Crisis, which nearly resulted in nuclear. I mean, the world could have very ended. I'm going to get in on some of that as well in this little series, but I think really today I'm going to wrap it up. This is kind of like a preview of what we got going on. I think Wes is also going to be working on some like solo stuff for the Patreon. I think it's going to be more like conspiracy, cryptid related stuff, and who knows what Nick's up to. But we're going to hopefully you enjoyed this little intro to my little series on JFK and the Kennedy family that'll be coming out. And these episodes will be coming out sporadically over the next 2 or 3 weeks. There might be 2, there might be 3 or 4. I'm going to try to get into more detail. The next episodes will be longer. But like I said, I'm going to try to keep them around 45 minutes or less. If I can talk that long and keep you engaged. But I look forward to listening to this. Thanks for supporting the show and listening. We love all y'all guys. We really appreciate it, the Fine By Me universe, and thank y'all for listening. See you soon.
Shine